So the next session that we're going to do for you today, the topic is workload automation, and I'm very privileged to introduce today the Senior Vice President and Business Line Leader for Workload Automation, Mr. Desikan Madhavanur.
All right.
Very good.
All right. So maybe I'll give a minute for a few more people to trickle in with their plates. Then we'll get started. Okay. All right. So in the interest of time, I'm just going to get started. And as people finish up, they'll stream in and we'll just continue the conversation. So thanks for showing up. Welcome. And we have a very, very interesting topic in store for you. Let me get the clicker. So we're going to spend the next 30 minutes talking about what the application economy is. We heard that term a couple of times in the keynotes. What does it really mean in the world of workload automation? And we're going to have a couple of really esteemed speakers from Citi who will join me. So rather than making this a monologue and slides, we're going to have real use cases that we will discuss from a customer point of view. And it's going to be a very interesting conversation. So very quickly, like I said, the agenda, 10 minutes at the most of me talking about what this really means. And then the next 20 minutes of questions and answers with our customers, and we talk about the actual use case itself. So you heard this term now, and you've probably seen this slide a couple of times. And I want to talk to you now about what exactly does it mean in the IT orchestration, workload automation business. What does this mean, and why is this changing the way the business is being run and how IT is being managed and orchestrated, right? Going through these bullets, they're pretty straightforward. Number one, no matter whether you're a retail business, you're a bank, you're an airline business, you're now a software company. We had a good keynote address today that talked about why. The fact is, more applications, consumer-facing and enterprise-facing, employee-facing, are being developed by our customers than ever before. Most of our customers now employ more software engineers than any of these companies, software companies do today. So there is a real change that's happening. Why is this important? And how does it change the way we run workload automation? So that's the question, right? If you think about it, right now, let's take an example. Maybe that's the easiest way to explain this, right? There are no downtimes. Every application that's being developed today that runs from your mobile, that runs on the web, is a 24/7 application. Batch windows, which is how job scheduling was done, is no longer that relevant. It is important, but more and more on-demand, ad hoc execution of streaming data, workload, is what's happening right now. Let me give you an example, right? If you go to one of our top telco customers, right? And if you order a phone, your favorite smartphone, the activation process is a set of transactions that get executed. And today, for some of the largest telcos, that's being done through our workload automation, CA workload automation products, right? Now imagine Black Friday, tens of thousands of customers are in the shops and they're trying to order their smartphones, right? And you see, if you go to an Apple store, you see the employees carrying these tablets and activating the phones for you, right? Tens of thousands of transactions to activate devices are happening, and not one of those customers wants to wait longer than 3 seconds, right? How do you do that? How do you ensure that orchestration happens seamlessly? What kind of infrastructure do you need and processes do you need to have that happen on a 24/7 basis? Now, that's the big change that this whole application economy is introducing to the IT ecosystem, right? Every one of you is looking at the challenge and saying, how do I solve that? So clearly, having the right infrastructure and providing that user experience is absolutely critical. If you don't have that, if your activation, for instance, goes down for 10 minutes during Black Friday, that's millions of dollars lost. A lot of you guys are going to get your phone calls, right? So that's something that's not acceptable. So building the right infrastructure is important. More than that, these applications are so easy to develop today, they get deployed faster and faster. So DevOps, the application development and the IT automation and operations are getting intermingled, but you have to support automating and introducing into production these applications on a regular basis, on a day-by-day, week-by-week basis. So how do you support that, right? And how do you do this when all these devices are invoking these transactions in a secure way? And how do you leverage the cloud to do this? Some companies, some of our customers, are using cloud as a backup, right? As a high availability standby. This could be a private cloud, high availability standby. Others are using it for cloud bursting. On a Black Friday, when the transaction volume increases, they offload some transactions. So they use different models of how cloud gets utilized. So how do you do this, right? So this, for me, orchestrating this is the big challenge. And this is where workload automation is both being challenged, the traditional models are being challenged, and new opportunities for CA and customers to work together are emerging at this point of time. So what does it all translate into? Our customers are running more software on more platforms more frequently than ever. And as IT people, our IT departments are getting challenged to do that with almost a flat budget, okay? And now there are no batch windows, so you have to do this on a 99.999 availability model. So this is a confluence of 3 events, right, that makes it really, really challenging. And frankly, automation is becoming the core fabric on which efficiency can be delivered in a complex environment, right? There's no other way to do this. And when you look at automation, it's an end-to-end spectrum, right? There is the release automation of getting the product deployed quickly with automation. There is the run books and event-based automation where things fail, devices fail. How do you respond to that? There is the data movement and the data automation, configuration, placing workloads in the right place, and finally, the jobs themselves, running the SQL jobs, running the infrastructure jobs. So these things happen. All of these things are equally important. Now, any one of these could be your failure point. And if that happens, then all hell breaks loose. So that's the problem, right? And what we are seeing increasingly today is our customers are looking at this as a continuum, no longer silos, no longer workload automation by itself. It is now a continuum of automation of how do I make sure that when my next SAP version is installed, all its automation is installed along with it. How do I make sure that when that happens, right, the event management, the device management, all of those things, the storage is all in place. And the workloads work in the same way as before. And the important thing, I'll give you an example. We had SAP customers who moved from one version to the other, and they want to know before they do that, is their old batch window still valid? In the new version of SAP, will my workload still run in the same batch window, right? It is an extremely difficult question to answer, and so there's a lot of SLA management, predictive analytics that goes into figuring out if that's even possible. So this is the new work, right? And frankly, when we look at this problem, it's one of performance, one of scale, right? One of reliability, and one of complexity of applications and agents that are proliferating in the ecosystem. And we decided that rather than me present, we need to bring someone here, a customer in here, that best represents this complexity and scale that we have seen in our install base. So I would like to use this opportunity to invite John Nardella, SVP, Head of Batch Scheduling at Citi, and Rajan Patel, who runs the infrastructure management for the distributed world. So we have both of our guests from Citi here. So they join me here. and we'll have a little bit of a question and answer session going.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great. First, thanks a lot for joining us on stage. This is a great experience for all of us here to hear from your experiences. Let me start with a simple thing. We had a conversation not too long ago where I was pretty overwhelmed by the scale that you guys talked about, the level of deployment in your ecosystem. For the benefit of the audience, can you talk to us about what Citi considers scale? What kind of scale are you looking at?
Sure, I'll give you a couple of high-level metrics enterprise-wide, and then I'll turn it over to Raj to give you a little bit more of a breakdown. So we have about 1.5 million production jobs deployed throughout Citi globally, and we're executing approximately 25 million jobs every month. And in terms of AutoSys agents, we have 30,000 agents deployed.
And in terms of like the layout, right? So we use AutoSys 11.3, and we have 3 different hubs globally: Asia Pac, EMEA, and North America. And we are providing services to Citi applications around like 1,500 applications globally, and there are 15,000 users using AutoSys from lower level, advanced level, and so on. And basically, that's what we are. And we have standardized tool sets and processes across the globe. So anytime we get a new release or something, it's the same process being followed globally throughout. So that's what we use so far. Yep.
Excellent. That's amazing scale, right? So if you take it to the next step, right, what kind of applications are we talking about? 1,500 is a pretty big number. So can you give us, which ones are the floor control, the revenue generating applications, and what about the back-end application? Can you give us a little breakdown of what you do?
So there's basically 2 categories of applications that we run. The purely business applications that generate revenue, and then we have operational type of applications that are more focused on governance, right? So those types of applications are designed to, for example, detect fraudulent activity. And just to illustrate, I'll give you a personal experience on mine. Many of you probably heard of a security breach that happened to Home Depot a couple of months ago, where millions of their credit cards and customer data was breached and hacked. So I have my accounts through Citibank, and I was notified about a month ago that there was possibly some fraudulent activity, to check my account postings and confirm that the activity was valid. And it turns out that it was actually fraudulent. And they notified me, the customer support center notified me before I even knew about it. So other uses of the operational type applications are to prevent money laundering. All right, so Citi being a global company, we operate in 160 countries. Post 9/11, it's very important that we take those types of precautions so that we're not enabling organized criminal activity or terrorist activity. And then also the protection of our customer data, all right, making sure that our customers' information is not hacked and used maliciously. And then obviously the business type of applications.
I just want to add more things to John. In terms of the technology applications, it's mostly driven towards end-of-day batch processing, and everybody has to use some scheduling products in Citi. So we do have different products, but most focused distributed environment is AutoSys. And type of applications are various. It could be a fund transfer application, it could be a trading floor application, it could be even infra maintenance type of activities as well. And all of them there are some sections which we deem as highly critical. And from our standpoint, we try to group it together in such a way so we know these are the high critical applications working on this environment. This is related to fund transfer, or this is end-of-day batch processing, and so on. So that's how we try to isolate and spread across the board. So, yeah.
Great. Now, one of the topics we talked about in the application economy is the concept of growth and planning for growth. Can you give an idea about, we know it's large, but how is it growing? Is it still growing? Why is it growing? How are you planning for that? A little insight into that as well.
Sure. Well, to begin, I'll rewind to about 2011, pre-2011. At that time, obviously, Citi's a global company. Like I said, we operate in 160 countries. But in terms of how our infrastructure is managed and has been managed, it was very much siloed according to region or particular location, and very much so, in many cases, in those locations and regions, very much aligned to a particular business line. So starting in 2011, we saw the benefits of trying to globalize and standardize our technology platforms and becoming a true shared service across all of our business lines. So the key to making that a success is standardizing, right? So we had to choose a strategic scheduler platform, and AutoSys was one of them, and then drive the migrations and execute on that strategy and drive the workload migrations off of the non-strategic schedulers onto our strategic platforms. So the last 2 or 3 years, we've been very much occupied with executing those workload migrations. It's taken up a lot of our time, and I see a lot of the growth coming from those migrations happening around the world. Right now, at this point in time, we have about at least a dozen to 15 migrations that either recently completed in the last 2 years, or works in progress, or projected to complete within the next year or 18 months. And in addition to that, there's a lot of natural organic growth. Raja just completed erecting 2 new instances in North America because we exceeded our capacity, and that continues to grow, that trend. And do you want to add to that?
It's so as John said, right, and a lot of migrations, conversions activities. So we are trying to get all the scheduling products over all the years we acquired, so many years, and we are trying to standardize into some, like, couple of tool products. And there is a lot of migrations going on in that activity. In addition to all those migrations, we are also growing naturally with a natural growth and expansion. There's always new users are getting onboarded to AutoSys. I have a team who will just, their job is to just take care of onboarding of the new users. So they will, even though we have all these fancy training materials and so on, there's just one dedicated team just doing the onboarding of the new users. And looking back on the trend of 3-4 years, we are growing around like 20% per year, and that's our growth. That doesn't include any of the migration activities. So constantly there are new users coming up. Even though CT has been using technology for a long time, we are still finding folks are still using legacy tools like scheduling, like cron or Windows schedulers, and they want to take it to the next level, and they come to us, and we provide the services to onboard them to AutoSys and get them a better tool sets in terms of monitoring, more features, and they can perform a lot of scheduling activities. So yeah, it's going quite well.
Excellent. Now, the important question: how is the CA workload tool powering all this growth? How critical is this? What's your engagement model? How do you work with CA to make sure that you get the most out of the products, out of the relationship?
Well, it's absolutely vital. It's a core infrastructure service. When you think of network, you think of infrastructure, you think of like network, storage, management, things of that nature. I will put scheduling right up there as one of the most important infrastructure services, if not the most. I mean, if the scheduler doesn't function, if we don't complete our batch processing for the night, we can't open for business the next morning. It's that simple. And again, it's a shared service across every business line, across every geography. So it's absolutely vital.
So of course, we have a good partnership with Citi, CA and Citi, and there are some glitches, but we are getting there. And it's been a good partnership throughout the years. With CA, we were able to set up, like as I said earlier on the presentation, like the discussion, we have 3 different hubs, same version, same processes, same tool set, different levels of teams, and close to 30,000 agents deployment globally. So there is a requirement, the needs from the application teams are, we have a 0 downtime. So we just predict like 99.99 uptime all the time. And with CA, high availability software, and over the years and advancement into the software stabilities and so on, we are able to maintain that service level with the customers. And we do get a lot of critical applications. So the question about like how critical the applications are, by the way, everything is critical. If you ask to anybody, they will say it's all critical. But I just want to quote one example. Like we have, for example, we have one applications which does city transfer to a certain time. So they have a requirements to complete a fund transfer by a certain time, and if they don't meet that deadline, there's a financial penalty. So not only they have a team who is monitoring the batch, which is getting automated via Autosys, they have a team just to watch the batch and ready to do a manual intervention if required, just to meet the deadlines. So that's how critical applications are running through Autosys and so on. So, yeah.
Excellent. All right. So I hope that all of you got a really good insight into the scale that this application economy introduces and how Citi is coping with the growth and the complexity of their environment in their Autosys ecosystem. So at this point, I'd like to say really thanks a lot for showing up here and sharing your experience with the team here. Please give them a big hand.